Do you smell that, Greg? That overwhelming decay, stagnant rot. It burns the back of my eyeballs. And I love it. It was a terrible tragedy to lose the Death Guard with the relaunch of KT24, and this return isn't a complete return to form, but this new slathering of Rotfather worshipping plague factories does have highly flavorful elements woven into them. Close range teams will find it difficult to go toe to toe with these disease-clad super soldiers. Ranged teams won't fare much better, and the armor-clad elites might find their health degraded from within their protective shells. But before we get into all that, if you're new to the channel and love Kill Team and tabletop games as I do, and are interested in delving into what makes some of these formats tick, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Maybe a thumb option will entice you as well. And if you want to keep the conversation going, we have a community Discord linked in the description below. Join up. We'd be happy to have you. So, put on your air freshener necklace, mask up, and let's dive into the cesspools of filth that fuel the Plague Marines. I'd like to start this one up with a reminder. Over time, Kill Team changes, data slates drop, rules adjust. There are currently rumblings of a shift coming to most elite teams. This may or may not be true. Even if it does happen, the change might not be major, but it could adjust what we go over here. I will release data slate overview vids as they happen, but definitely double check the Warhammer community page to update yourself on anything we talk about across all of these overview vids. With that out of the way, the Death Guard. An elite team with a focus on durability. That elite side of them brings the much feared and hated Astartes rule. The main rule that people think is going to change in some way. Any of their units can perform either 2 shoot or fight actions per activation. Devastating coming from 3 APL units. The Death Guard have access to a Psyker, so its abilities are tied into this, so long as the psychic attacks used aren't the same as each other. These shoot actions mostly include bolt-based weaponry otherwise, so no double spewer or plasma pistol. Astartes also allows the Plague Marines to counteract regardless of order. Actions will still be restricted by the order, but maybe they need to slightly reposition or perform a mission action, easily done from conceal. Poison is one of the 2 massive flavorful Death Guard rules. You'll find as we go over the units that there isn't much damage spike among them. They have a little bit here or there, mostly tied to their crit potential, but when compared to the adaptability of their legionary cousins, they tend to be a bit lacking in some areas. Poison is an attempt to balance this out. If an enemy is inflicted with damage from the resolve attack dice step with any successes, critical or normal, a debuff is placed on them. This appears to be permanent. On a baseline, this causes a single point of damage to occur every time the unit is activated going forward. You can only apply a single poison token, and there doesn't appear to be any way to remove them, so have fun with that. This poison debuff is also used in a few other ways to enhance distances for further debuffs or even other potential damages. So this could be worth tracking. If you're playing into Death Guard, your goal should be maximizing avoidance of this debuff. No simple task. Full field ranged weapons that can possibly do this tend to only shoot a few times per attack, so maximizing your retained dice and playing outside of some of the more devastating 7 and 8 inch weapon ranges will be important for your survival. On top of poison, Disgustingly Resilient makes its return in the new Kill Team 24 Feel No Pain style. Instead of the Feel No Pain roll working for every wound applied, it only works on the dice that inflicts 3 or more damage, which seems to even potentially work with devastating wounds, as that is inflicted damage from the dice retention. Still, 3 or more there. So far, I've seen 5+ and 6+ for this. Death Guard get the scary 50-50, 4+. Low damage weapons won't really matter here, but then again, against elites, you have to find damage from weird sources at times. A solid collection of core rules, and from the strategic ploys, we have a fun collection of plague-themed options. Contagion reduces enemy move stats by 2 inches and hit stats by 1 in certain situations. 1. The enemy must be in control range of a Plague Marine. Simple enough. 2. The enemy is poisoned and within 3 inches and visible to a Plague Marine. A little bit more elaborate. 3. The enemy is visible to a Plague Marine icon bearer and within 3 inches of it. Just some slight unit flavor. This is massively defensive against melee teams and doubles as a great way to muck up faster teams a bit. Notice that this debuff doesn't claim it persists throughout the activation, so the stat changes should occur in a more active way. Charging a Marine under this benefit won't affect the full distance of the charge potentially, but fighting afterwards will come with a -1 to hit. Likewise, falling back from melee or trying to move out of a 3-inch range will be reduced, but shooting from a distance shouldn't be affected by this. Lumbering Death further slows down Death Guard movement potential, but not completely. When shooting or fighting, if the operative didn't move more than 3 inches for the activation prior to the shoot or fight action, Ceaseless is applied to the attack. This doesn't seem to prevent further movement, so if a ranged fighter wants to activate, shoot, move, and dash, that opening shoot action will have the rule, but the follow-up can still go its full distance. This is good for this kind of team that can set up with a good ranged turn in mind before ducking back into cover. Cloud of Flies works as a command point smoke cloud of sorts. A marker is placed on the field, and if a Plague Marine is wholly within 3 inches of the marker, and an enemy that is shooting that Plague Marine is more than 3 inches away, the Plague Marine benefits from obscuring. This marker will vanish at the top of the next turning point. No slight persistence into the next round. Nurglings. Yes. Purpose for the little marker I made. This is a single target ploy, and it must be used either on an enemy operative within 3 inches of a Plague Marine or a poisoned operative within 7 inches of a Marine. This applies a 1 APL debuff to the target until the end of their next activation. The Nurgle mascot lives on in glory. From the Firefight ploys, Virulent Poison continues the faction ability interaction. When a Plague Marine activates or counteracts before or after an action occurs, this can be used to select a single effect. Either an enemy within 3 inches of the operative gains a poison token if it doesn't already have one, or you can roll 2d6. If the result is 7 or more, a single enemy within 7 inches gains a poison token. Flavorful and quite risky when going against enemies further away than 3 inches. Poisonous Demise is the return of the putrid self-destruction of old. When a Plague Marine is incapacitated, you can check for all enemies within 3 inches of that 32mm base and apply poison to all of those that don't have it. A single damage is then applied to all enemies nearby that have poison tokens. This is worded a little weird. It sounds like if they didn't have poison, the 1 damage is meant for only those who did, but it also says the damage is done to operatives who gained poison during this action, so guessing that this is a combo of applied poison followed by applied damage, just worded in a way to ensure that only 1 poison token is applied in total per operative, but the referred to action might be specifically the action taken that caused the incapacitation. Unsure. Sickening Resilience is a trigger effect from dice inflicting damage. If you don't really want to roll for the Feel No Pain rule, this pretty much makes the function of damage reduction by 1 to a minimum of 2 a constant, at least until the end of the activation or counteraction this occurs during. Good into double fight and double shoot units, as it can be sort of a 2-for-1 potentially. Curse of Rot is a slight damage boost potential. Not the greatest exactly. If a Plague Marine shoots or fights an enemy operative within 3 inches or 7, if that operative is poisoned, when the defense dice or attack dice are rolled, any results of 3, not 3 plus or 3 or less, just 3, are considered to be fails, cannot be re-rolled, and inflict 1 damage on that enemy operative. This isn't done during retaliation, so it can pretty much only be done during the Plague Marine's actions. This can be deceptively good when going against melee teams that hit on 3s normally, or elite teams with good saves. This changes the average Marine or Hearthkin to a 4+ save. The Rubric Marines of the Warp Coven will also only save on rolls of 2 or 4+, an odd little gap. This is a source of power against those armies, as most of the ranged attacks the Guard have are pierce-free. Equipment-wise, the Marines have access to the Plague Bell. This ignores stat changes from injury, pretty much a must-take. There are some debuffs that do similar things to injury, but are not considered injury. This won't affect that. Blight Grenades provides 2 instances of a sort of improved frag grenade. 4 attacks, 4+, 2/4 damage. Range 6, Blast 2, Saturate, enhanced with Severe and Poison. A decent poison spreader. Plague Rounds, probably another must-take. Any models with bolt guns or pistols gain the Severe and Poison rules. Severe alone makes this useful, but Poison is always worth spreading. Poison Vents might also be up there for choices. If an enemy with poison activates within 3 inches of a Plague Marine, instead of taking 1 damage from the effect, they take D3. Brutal. But all of these ploys and equipment options will need to be timed and selected perfectly into certain opponents to allow these models to achieve full potential. Speaking of which, not much to go over unit-wise, sadly. Many were hoping for a slight return of some options from the compendium, but the focus seems to be on the push-fit models of the old Heroes line, starting with the Plague Champion. Stats in line with elites until you get to that move distance. 5 inches is a little restrictive, but having played Hearthkin before, at times it can be fine, but vantage points might be out of reach without some ladder-based assistance for this team. The Champion carries one of the only piercing weapons the team has, a standard plasma pistol. Nothing too out of the usual. Its Plague Sword stands out though, decent attacks, an alright 4-5 damage line, Severe, which you will see on many Death Guard themed weapons, Poison, which we went over, and Toxic. Toxic increases both damage stats by 1 against poison targets. We're going to see this roll a few more times across a couple more operatives. Now, poison occurs when damage happens, so across 2 strikes from this weapon against a fresh target, the first should apply the poison, and then the second should arguably gain the damage increase. Neat. The Grandfather's Blessing serves as a healing sustain. It is triggered when a nearby enemy within 7 inches that has a poison token loses a wound. It causes the champion to regain a wound, up to 3 per turning point, and only if this operative isn't incapacitated. So no dying, blowing up, and regaining some wounds and coming back. None of that nonsense. I'm pretty sure if a poison target takes a hit of 3 or more damage from 1 dice, that should heal the champion to full potential for the turning point. It doesn't seem to sound like a 1 heal per instance of wounds. A very strong frontline operative here, but for more mid-range, the Malignant Plague Caster. The Plague Marines have a Psyker now, and this one is pretty good. Also, super integral. It comes with 2 psychic ranged attacks. Entropy exists as a 7-inch range, severe, saturating poison attack. Its 3/7 damage line makes it one of the scary burst attacks the Death Guard have. Its Plague Wind variant acts as a sort of full field flamer attack. Torrent 1, Saturate, Severe, and Poison. 6 attacks with a 2/3 damage line. Good potential at applying poison to multiple targets. If there is a single unit in the Death Guard that should probably take the high ground, this is it. And remember, Astartes allows this unit to double shoot just with different psychic attacks, so no double wind or double entropy. Its Corrupted Staff is also nothing to sneer at. Pretty basic attack line for simple elites, but severe, shock, stun, and poison make for a solid supportive weapon. All of these carry Psychic with them as rules, so keep track of any potential interactions with Psychic abilities. They don't seem to be common anymore, but you never know. The Plaguecaster also comes with 2 special actions, both 1 AP. One acts as a poison applier, or agitator. A visible unit within 7 inches, or a targetable unit beyond that, will either get a poison token or take 3 damage, if a poison token is already applied. A sort of 7-inch seek rule applied to this ability. Otherwise, there is a healing option. A friendly operative within 3 inches and visible will have 2 dice rolled for it. If the dice total is 7, a heal of 7 occurs. If not, the highest roll on those 2 dice goes through as a heal. I feel like mastery of this unit will be the difference between a good Death Guard player and a true powerhouse. The Plague Marine Bombardier serves as a simple grenadier option. It comes with a basic bolt gun and fist, but this style of unit tends to come with a standalone grenade option. Without needing to take them as equipment, this unit can use crack grenades and blight grenades during its activation. Normally, grenades are okay. The 4+ to hit hurts a little, but Grenadier units get an improved hit rate when using these weapons, +1. And even further, blight grenades gain a special extra rule called Toxic. We already talked about this. It's similar to that champion ability. If the target is already poisoned, the damage line of the blight grenade goes up by 1, so 3/5. The Plague Marine Fighter comes with a Flail of Corruption, 5 attacks, 3 up, 4/5 damage. It's alright. Brutal, Severe, Shock, and Poison. Now that is a blend. It also has a wild ability, Flail. For 1 AP, it inflicts D3 +2 damage to all nearby operatives other than itself. That does include allies. When a 3+ is rolled for damage, which might need clarification between a roll of 3 or a D3 result of 3, or even just 3 total damage? QA. Either way, if that happens to an enemy, poison is applied. This cannot be done while concealed and is a little limited based on already done fighting actions. The wording feels like the aim is to prevent 2 fight actions from occurring when this is used, but you can still use it and then fight, or fight and then use it, and since this doesn't have a control range restriction, you can use it from close up. A solid battering ram, only restricted by its 5-inch move. The Plague Marine Heavy Gunner, sadly, is restricted only to its Plague Spewer and Fists. No more Plague Launcher. The Spewer isn't that bad though, and leans into the team flavor a bit. 5 attacks, 2+ to hit, 3/3 damage, range of 7, Torrent of 2, Saturate, Severe, and Poison. Now, what's cool about these kinds of flamers is that the opponents tend to only be able to save 3 times against them, so having 5 attacks on 2+ potentially guarantees damage regardless of a good save. Severe is a little redundant though due to the damage line, but there are enemies that usually don't like ranged crits for other reasons. Looking at you, Felgor. The Plague Marine Icon Bearer is a bit basic. It does have a Plague Knife, which is nice, 5 attacks on a 3+, 3/4 damage, severe, and poison. The Bolt Pistol also puts this unit in position to be a forward objective holder, scrappy and with the Icon Bearer ability, capable of holding points since this is potentially considered to be a 4 APL unit in those situations. Only really for the holding points though, not so much for actions it can take. Its icon of Contagion also allows the Contagion ploy to be used for free so long as this unit is alive in the kill zone. A constant outpouring of defensive stat reduction. The Plague Marine Warrior comes with a bolt gun and a plague knife. This version of the bolt gun has Toxic as a rule, and the knife is a little bit weaker than the Icon Bearers with only 4 attacks. Toxic, as we've said a few times so far, increases the damage line by 1 against poison targets. This is a bolt gun, so the equipment that gives it poison and severe does work here, as well as double shoot. 4 or 5 damage with that severe rule is kind of scary from range. Repulsive Fortitude is also absurd. This unit can retain critical saves from 5s. Sort of a lethal 5 for armor, and these are all the operatives for a 6-unit elite squad. The only variation comes from who you take within the specialist section here. Normally, warriors are able to be taken as a full list, but not this time. Again, probably from the push fit limitations, although I really wish Games Workshop would have went the Angels of Death route and allowed for alternates based on the prior teams. This does mean 1 unit from specialists is on rotation, and mission and matchup will be key in choosing who it's going to be. Personally, even though I like the Heavy Gunner for the most part, the damage potential and sustain from the Warrior is actually quite impressive. Missions-wise, the team archetype floats between Security and Seek and Destroy. Security feels like the go-to, a slow team like this that is insanely hard to budge in any direction feels like the way to go when protecting locations. Secure center might be a top pick for this for many. Seek and destroy isn't the worst. Usually a fast team helps facilitate those missions, but against other elite teams, going champion could possibly end up being solid with a front line of a flail and a plague sword and plasma pistol. Just watch out, since poison token deaths won't really help here. And all of this, swirled together into a vat of putrid effervescence, makes up the Death Guard kill team. First glance, I don't really think overpowered is necessarily the word for them. I feel like they can be outmaneuvered easily, so teams that find it hard to bring these units down might be able to avoid giving them too many bodies while still performing missions and tasks. If damage is mitigated until later in turn 3, Death Guard might find it hard to stem the tide of points gain. A key thing will be to ensure that the defensive options are all used in the right moment to maximize damage mitigation when the enemy truly goes for a kill. The biggest threat to any elite team is losing a model too early. A buffed up Melta, or long range Wraith Cannon shot, or Dark Lance, a mining laser, or a railgun. Give a unit up early and it will be the worst uphill battle ever. Thanks for watching. Hopefully this helped cover some of the concepts the new Death Guard brings to the table. I will miss my Poxwalker horde of hugging zombies, but it's good to see a spellcaster in the Blighted Legion, and the poison flavor is just perfect. I have personally been leaning towards Mandrake Shenanigans as my outlet of choice, but like in most games, I always seek a side concept, and mass poison might just be for me. If you have any fun Death Guard ideas, or maybe you just want to vent about another elite team you'll have to contend with in the competitive scene, take to the comments below. Try to keep it civil, though. And if you want to keep talking about all things Nurgle, or even other possibilities, remember that there is a Discord linked below as well. Join up if you want. As always, likes for the like god and subscribes for the subscribe throne. I am Kimmerix, and I'll see you in the next one.